The shooting of Trayvon Martin, a trip back from a 7-Eleven on a rainy night in Florida, results in the nation's next big trial. And we're just days away from the start of jury selection. Today, attorneys from both sides already battling in court, and critical 911 calls, a voice heard screaming for help. But whose voice is on that tape? Is it George Zimmerman? His family says yes. Is it Trayvon Martin? His parents say yes. Vinnie Politan's off tonight, so criminal defense attorney Holly Hughes is with our in-studio jury here at HLN headquarters in Atlanta. Who do they think is screaming for help? HLN correspondent Jean Casares is in front of the courthouse in Sanford, Florida, where all of this is taking place. She was in court for today's big hearing. In Orlando, criminal defense attorney Diana Tennis, her most recent client, Karen Kelly, just beat a manslaughter charge. In Miami, former prosecutor and criminal defense attorney Phillips Snyder. Also in Miami, Judge Alex Ferrer, host of the TV show Judge Alex. And we've got our trial experts here in Atlanta, Florida attorneys Janet Johnson and John Phillips. Also Mo Ivory, attorney and host of the Mo Ivory radio show. But tonight, we begin with Florida versus George Zimmerman, the next big trial, the case that could divide a nation.
Sounds like a male.
And you don't know why?
I don't know why. I think they're yelling help, but I don't know.
They're wrestling right in the back of my porch.
And someone's yelling 2 doors down from me, screaming, hollering, help, help, help.
So you think he's yelling help?
Yes.
All right, what is your... anything else that you heard?
No, the guy yelling help. Oh my God.
Did you see anything at all, or you just heard screaming?
I just heard screaming and then a gunshot.
I just heard a shot right behind my house.
You just heard one shot go off?
It was either that or a rock at the window or something. I don't know. The guy's yelling help, and I'm not going outside.
Okay. And is it a male or female?
Sounds like a male.
And you don't know why?
I don't know why.
And that screaming was not normal, natural speech. Anatomical or physiological condition of the individual who is going through tremendous duress. Different muscle groups would be utilized to produce that kind of a strenuous voice. And unfortunately, science is not here with us to tell.
There was a lot of emotion, a lot of tension in the courtroom today. And folks, the trial hasn't even started yet. Jury selection starts next week, but the focus is on those 911 calls. And the big question, Holly over there with our in-studio jury, who was screaming for help on that 911 call?
That's exactly right, Ryan. And if we can determine that, that is going to tell us so much about the evidence in this case, because George Zimmerman says, hey, you know what? I was getting beat up by Trayvon Martin, and it was me screaming for help. So let's see what our in-studio jury has to say about this. You all heard the tape, right? We've been talking about this. This is going to be a big issue in the trial. So I want you to get your paddles ready, okay? And it's a very serious topic tonight, but we're going to have fun with it. So when you hold up your paddles, I want you to do it in a wave like we do at the sports game, okay? We're going to start. You guys on this end are going to put your paddles up and all the way down the row. How many people, after hearing those screams, believe it's George Zimmerman screaming for help on those tapes? Go. All right, what do we got? Everybody is... oh! We've got a lot of no's, Ryan, but I see 2 yeses in the back, so I want to get a comment. Juror number 10, you've been with us a lot. You're used to looking at the evidence. Tell me why you think that this is George Zimmerman screaming on the tape.
One of the things that I thought about when I listened to the tape was he is completely and totally in duress, and I just believe that is him, to be honest with you.
Okay, wonderful. And let's go down to one of our yeses. David, you're one of our regulars. What makes you think that it is Trayvon Martin's voice we are hearing with those cries for help?
I'm actually not sure whose voice it is. I've listened to it multiple times when it's played on TV, and I'm just not sure about whose voice it is.
Okay. Okay, and Ryan, I think that's going to be one of the big issues, because even the experts so far can't tell us definitively who's yelling for help.
Right, and even our jury split at this point. You wonder what the jury in the case, once they're brought on, will think. I want to bring in Jean Casares, HLN legal correspondent, was in the courtroom today. And Jean, you know what? I first want to play some sound from court, because you can feel the tension as the lawyers are going at it. Let's take a look.
We'd be asking for sanctions for you all for waiting until the last minute to disclose it to us. Well, you don't think it's a fair trial for both sides?
I'm not laughing because I think this is funny. This is far, far from amusing.
Let me ask you this.
We caught you hiding the information and confronted you about it, and you never gave it to us. And we called a witness today to prove that you hid that information and then misrepresented it to the judge.
Sir, with all
That's
due respect,
okay?
Sir, with respect to the court, I'm not going to get into a banter back and forth.
Wow. Gene, is this a sign of things to come?
Oh, I think it is. You know, it was such a serious moment in the court because the defense was alleging the entire professional credibility of the lead prosecutor of this case, Bernie De La Rianda, because they said that there was a 900-page report about the contents, all the contents of Trayvon Martin's phone, and Bernie De La Rianda knew about it but never gave it to the defense. It was highly emotional, highly volatile, so volatile the judge absolutely stopped the hearing and said, we're not going to tend to this until after the trial.
Well, already tension is high in that courtroom. But, you know, the big issue, whose voice is it on that 911 call? So I want to go to our panel of experts. Okay, guys, one word to describe the screams for help on that call. Janet Johnson.
Chilling.
Heart-wrenching. John Phillips, heart-wrenching.
Agonizing.
Agonizing. Judge Alex, one word.
Desperate.
Diana Tennis.
Irrelevant.
Phillips Snyder. Wow. Phillips Snyder, one word.
Inconclusive.
Inconclusive. Okay. And Gene Casares?
I was sitting in that courtroom. I heard it within the four walls like the jury most likely will hear it. It was so chilling. It was chilling to hear it in that courtroom.
Chilling. Chilling. Holly Hughes, one word.
Foreboding, Ryan.
Foreboding. Okay, a lot to talk about in terms of Zimmerman today. And not only that, the Seacat trial. We've been following it here on HLN. The defendant himself took the stand. We'll get into that as well on the show. Keep it right here on After Dark.
Proving guilty or not guilty.
This is it, it's a Kel-Tec 9. It looks like there's some burn there, which would show very close proximity.
We go inside the evidence room.
Zimmerman raises the weapon. Now, this is significant.
The cell phone of Trayvon Martin.
Next on HLN After Dark.
Does he look hurt?
I can't see him. I don't want to go out there. I don't know what's going on. So they're swimming.
So you think he's yelling help?
Yes.
All right, what is your...
It's the chilling call that could be one of the biggest points in this case. But whose voice was it on that 911 call? Well, let's look at some of the evidence. First, Mary Kutcher, Selma Lamilla, they both talked about how they believe it had to be Trayvon Martin, two ear witnesses. Let's take a listen.
We were in the kitchen. I heard the crying. It was a little boy. As soon as the gun went off, the crying stopped. Therefore, it tells me it was not Zimmerman crying. Immediately, we went out the sliding glass door and see Zimmerman over the body with his hands on the body.
We hear somebody say that this guy, it was calling for help, Zimmerman, and it was not. That was not happen in my window, in my porch that night.
Now, keep in mind, another witness says he wasn't sure whose voice it was. So then we look at George Zimmerman. Days after the killing, he walked police through what happened, and he said, yes, that was my voice. Let's take a look.
When he was hitting my head against it, felt like my head was going to explode, and I thought I was going to lose consciousness. So I tried to squirm so that I could get, because he only had a small portion of my head on the concrete. So I tried to squirm off the concrete. And when I did that, somebody here opened the door, and I said, help me, help me. And they said, I'll call 911. I said, no, help me. I need help. And I don't know what they did, but that's when my jacket moved up, and I had my firearm on my right side hip.
And then there's Tracy Martin and Sabrina Fulton. Tracy Martin initially wasn't sure whose voice it was. Later came out and said that was his son. It's a point that he and Sabrina Fulton made clear in an interview with Anderson Cooper.
I believe that's Trayvon Martin. That's my baby's voice. Every mother knows their child, and that's his voice.
The screams got more franticer, and at that second that we heard the shot, the screams just completely stopped. He saw his death.
And Holly Hughes, it's one of the toughest issues in this case. Whose voice is it on that 911 call?
That's exactly right, Ryan. And when the jury hears that mother testify, I know my child's voice, you've got to wonder what kind of an effect is that going to have on them. Now, jurors, we talked before. We had two people who thought that it was George Zimmerman's voice. Have you guys changed your mind since hearing these interviews? No, okay, all right, I'm getting a no back there. So let's talk to some of our ladies in the front. We were talking about this on the break, Ryan, and I know number 5, you had some very specific thoughts about whose voice that was.
I'm trying to figure out, if I have a gun and somebody's using their fists, why would I be screaming for help? And if I'm getting wrestled, those calls for help don't sound muffled. They sound really clear to me.
Okay, well, that's a great point, but one of the things that George Zimmerman says is, you know, I didn't want to pull my gun. I was getting beat up. So we'll see if the jury thinks that that's a good defense. Brian?
Yeah, we'll have to see. And you know what? A lot of you are weighing in online. You're reaching out to us. You got a lot of questions on this case. Let's answer some of them as well. Here's one from Facebook. This one from Denise. She says, how could anyone believe that Zimmerman was yelling for help when he was the one with a gun and Trayvon Martin was just holding Skittles? Okay, Mo Ivory, you have the question. You have 15 seconds. Go.
Exactly, Ryan. How can anybody believe that George Zimmerman was the one screaming for help when he was the one in the superior position? Listen, Trayvon was the victim. You can't go from being the aggressor to the victim all of a sudden. He had a gun. He wouldn't have been the one yelling. Have you ever heard of somebody who's armed and in...
Good. Good job. You made it, though. Diana Tennis, another question for you. You have 15 seconds. It's from Ryan. Why would they be able to bring in technology for the voice analysis when there's no evidence to dispute Zimmerman's claim of self-defense? Zimmerman screaming for help even matches his story from the very beginning. Diana, 15 seconds.
I think the bigger question is whether or not they're going to let junk science in. And if they're not, then the judge is going to say, you're going to have to rely on lay witnesses and your own ears. And I think that's what it's going to come down to.
All right. Kind of evading it a little bit there, Diana, but we got the point on the junk science as well. But you did answer that part, voice analysis, junk science. All right, Judge Alex, 15 seconds. Why does it really matter who was screaming for help? Maybe Trayvon yelled help and then Zimmerman shot him. Maybe Zimmerman yelled help and realized he had the gun and shot him. Does it matter? That's from Gary.
That is the most critical evidence in the case. Whoever was yelling for help is the one that's going to determine the case. If Zimmerman was yelling for help, his self-defense claim stands. If Trayvon was yelling for help, you can't claim that you were defending yourself against somebody who's begging for their life. But unfortunately, I think the evidence is going to be too weak in that category to prove anything.
All right, good job, Judge, good job. All right, so, you guys, you ever play the game Taboo?
Yes.
Okay, so there are a lot of words the defense doesn't want brought into this trial, so what's the prosecution going to do to talk about those words? We're going to play Taboo in this studio, a little After Dark Taboo, to talk about that.
In his possession, we found a can of iced tea and a bag of Skittles and about $40 in cash. Not the goon. Do you have any prior training in law enforcement at all? I mean, any kind of... Just the constitutional law. Okay, so you went through the... Okay, but as far as identifying people and stuff like that, as far as what to look forward to make them really suspicious?
Just when we organized an annual neighborhood watch event, they told us, I think, a PowerPoint presentation.
Okay. I wasn't privy to that, but if you guys continue neighborhood watch, typically speaking, at nighttime, the garb is black on black on black with a black hoodie. Now, this guy had a dark gray hoodie, so it was dark, but his pants were beige. Not quite your prime suspect type.
So a lot to cover in the Zimmerman hearings before the trial starts next week, but the attorneys, one big issue for George Zimmerman, filed a motion to ban words and phrases that he calls inflammatory from this trial. You see, Marco Mara says that he's worried about the jury feeling prejudicial feelings, I should say, against his client. Take a look at this wall. See that? These are the words they don't want used. Things like profile, vigilante, wannabe cop. He confronted Trayvon Martin, self-appointed neighborhood watch captain. He got out of the car after police or dispatcher told him not to. So I want to bring in a panel to see how difficult it would be to argue this case without using these words. It's our own After Dark Taboo, folks. New game we're playing. You guys ever play Taboo?
Yes.
No. Okay, Janet hasn't, so we'll explain it to everybody at the same time. You're going to pick a word. I'm going to hold it up, and you're going to say how you would say it in court if you couldn't say that actual word. Janet, I'll start with you.
I want
You pick
that
this one? Okay. So let's take a look. Wannabe cop. What would you say in court?
A person who aspired towards law enforcement.
That's gonna be powerful for a jury? Okay.
But that's the whole point. They don't want it to be powerful. It has to be neutral for a jury. That's what he's
pushing the envelope, but okay. All right, John, you go.
That's where I'm not going to be good at this game because...
Let's see. This one, see that, folks? Profiled.
I'm going to take my chance with appeal, and I'm probably going to say profiled.
So you're gonna walk in the courtroom, say profiled, have objections flying.
Contempt. Forget appeal. Contempt.
Well, I don't think the motion in limine is going to be granted. If it really was granted, of course, I'm not going to do the judge like that.
Okay, so you're not even going to give a word then. You're going to use profiled.
For profiled, you know, it's tough. It's a tough one, and it's.
Come on, give me a word, real quick.
Profiled.
All right, John, I'm giving you a pass. Okay. All right, Mo picks this one. He confronted Trayvon Martin.
Okay, I would say he pursued Trayvon Martin. He went after Trayvon Martin.
Okay.
He came forth at Trayvon Martin.
Three different options.
Yeah.
Three different options.
Yeah, I
all
can
right.
keep on going.
Good one. Good one. Now, John, Gene, Phillip, I want you to participate too. You guys aren't here. I'm going to pick one for you. We'll start with Philip Schneider. I'll pick this one. Self-appointed neighborhood watch captain. Philip, what word would you use instead? What words would you use instead?
You got Paul Blart, Mall Cop, and you got Batman, the Avenger. So either one would work fine for me.
I want to see him saying Paul Blart, Mall Cop in court. That's what I want to see. Okay, Gene Casares, I'll pick one for you. How about this one, Gene? Vigilante.
Vigilante. Ooh, that is a loaded word right there. That could possibly not be allowed in the trial. Neighborhood watch captain to serve justice. I mean, vigilante, meaning he took it on himself. So that might be a tough one to get in.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, though. Neighborhood watch captain to serve justice is an interesting way to put that. Diana Tennis, great attorney down there in Florida. I'm going to give you one as well. This one is, he got out of the car after police or dispatch told him not to. That's a tough one, Diana.
Yeah, that is a tough one. I was surprised that was on the list, actually, because how much blander can you get other than he disobeyed direct orders from law enforcement to stop his vigilante justice?
Oh, that's right. She puts in the word vigilante. See, that's a great attorney right there. Good job, you guys. All right, let's go over to Holly Hughes with our in-studio jury.
Okay, jury, words are very, very powerful. So I want to find out from you, who here thinks that these kind of words that we saw displayed on the wall earlier would sway the jury? Hold up your paddles, yes or no. Would these words sway the jury? Okay, I see number 8 down here. You're the married mother of 3 sons. So this case kind of hits home for you. Why do you think, what effect would words have on the jury?
I think it would create a bias because you're talking about profile, vigilante, those type of words. I'm thinking for the defense, it would create a bias towards Zimmerman.
Okay, so you think at this point the judge should ban the prosecution from using these words? Is that what I'm hearing?
Not totally, because there are certain things that are part of the report. He did step out of his car. He was told not to get out. And literally, he was a neighborhood watch captain, so to speak. So not everything should be banned.
Okay, so what I'm hearing, Ryan, from our jury is that they want the facts to come out, but not the inflammatory wording.
All right, and that's key. That's exactly what the defense wants in this case as well. So we talked about George Zimmerman. Folks, there is a big case going on in Kansas. Brett Seacat, accused of killing his wife, murdering his wife, took the stand in his own defense today. We're going to talk about that coming up in After Dark.
Profiling is a very emotionally charged word, but we are all profiled, especially when we go to the airport. The issue is racial profiling, and if you want to know if Zimmerman racially profiled Trayvon, look at the many times he called the police on suspicious characters. Are they all black males? If they are, that's a pretty good indicator.
911, do you have an emergency? There's a fire. She shot herself, but she's in the fire. My wife is upstairs. I'm about to go upstairs and try and get her out.
Brett Seacat, a former sheriff's deputy, has maintained that his wife committed suicide after setting the family home on fire.
She told a friend a week and a half prior to this incident happening that you threatened to kill her. What? You threatened to burn the house down. You threatened to make it look like she did it. And that is bull.
You may call your next witness.
Chairman, the defense would call Brett T. Seacat to the witness stand.
You may come forward and be sworn, please, sir.
On that morning, when I said goodbye, she said, "See you tonight," and actually gave me a big kiss, which I thought was odd.
Brett, I can't do this. I can't fight this out. Take care of our boys. Hold them both and tell them Mommy loves them every night.
Did you murder her? No. Did you pull the trigger? No. Did you kill her? No.
One of the biggest moments in any trial is when the defendant takes the stand, and that's what happened in the Brett Seacat case out of Kansas. The defendant got up there in his own defense, but we couldn't see his face. I got to go out to Ted Rollins. He's been covering this case from the very beginning. Ted, this is the moment you wait for. We saw him talking to his lawyers, but you didn't see him on camera. How was he in court?
I wish you would have been able to see him on camera because, boy, it was fascinating to see him up there on the stand. At first, the jurors were absolutely riveted, taking notes. Every single jury member had a notebook, and this is not a note-taking jury. But then, as it dragged on, and you could hear the audio, his stories, they were detailed, sometimes hard to believe. He was one of these guys that grins when he's nervous, maybe, because he was smiling a lot and kind of being cool. And when asked about the hard drives, it's like, yeah, well, I got rid of them because, well, I was getting divorced. I might need more money. And his attitude seemed as though he was going out of his way to make himself look good no matter what the content of the story he was telling. When he was talking about his wife saying that she wanted to get a divorce and getting those papers, there was no emotion, no concession that he was floored by this. He was always in control. He tried to tell several jokes. All of them fell flat as a board. You could hear a pin drop. Jurors stopped taking notes. Some stopped looking at him. It almost became awkward, like you're standing next to somebody that it goes on, and you're just thinking, oh, please stop. It was a very bizarre first leg of what we expect to be a very lengthy time on the stand for Brett Seacat. If he continues with this demeanor as he's talking about the crime itself with no emotion, I cannot see jurors believing him.
Wow, and it surprised a lot of us that he opted out. He opted to have TV cameras not show his face. And Ted, he tried, at least according to the prosecution, they said he tried to cover up some things. He torched some hard drives. He explained that on the stand. Let's take a look.
We had been back and forth about 50 times on divorce. And so I just, when we went to bed that night, I thought we were still talking divorce, and then in the morning, she gives me a kiss, which makes me think not divorce. So it just let me know that we were back on the not divorce track. Then I looked at the law enforcement websites that said, do not, under any circumstance, sell your old cell phones.
So what did you decide to do with your cell phone at that point?
Well, the same websites that said don't sell your old cell phones said destroy them. Because for the very same reasons that you destroy a laptop, all your personal information that you've ever put on a cell phone, it's in there somewhere.
Okay, so Ted, he talks about his divorce. He gives reasons why he torched the cell phones, but emotion about the loss of his wife, the mother of his children, doesn't seem to be in his affect.
No, and again, he's trying to make himself look in control at all times. In fact, when he was talking about the back and forth with his wife, and I think this is a prelude of what we're going to see more of, he made her sound like she was going back and she couldn't figure out what was going on, and he was confused by her attitude. I think he's setting up that she was unbalanced, maybe going to try to tie it to that drug that she was taking, that hormone supplement for the weight loss. And if he goes down that road, we saw it happen with Jodi Arias bashing Travis Alexander, that will not fly at all, I don't think, with this jury. I wish you could have seen his face, because it was at times very smug presentation, almost like he was trying to entertain and be in control of the courtroom. Very fascinating. We'll have to see how it all pans out.
Smug, just unbelievable, Ted. Thank you. Holly, smug, not the right way to come off when you're on trial for your life.
That's exactly right. And our jury has some really strong feelings about Brett Seacat. Get your paddles ready, guys. All right, the question is, and we're not going to do the wave because y'all did not do so good the first time, okay? Just raise them up, all right? Bring them high. I want to see them. Did Brett Seacat show remorse? Put them up. All right. It's a sweep, Ryan. We have straight across the board, everybody says no, but I'm really interested to see what number 9 says. You are a minister and you're studying Christian psychology, so you've probably got some experience with people showing remorse. What do you think about this?
He's not showing any remorse. As a matter of fact, he seems very calculating. His police interview seems more like somebody rehearsing lines, like he's scripted. And it looks like he's practiced everything. He went straight up the ladder with his nose.
Okay, there you have it. Anybody else here have an opinion on Brett Seacat? Let's see, number 2, did you want to say something about this?
I just think by watching the initial interrogation, he was so angry. And I think if my wife had been, you know, committed suicide and she was dead, I'd be crying instead of, you know, cussing.
So, Ryan, it's a resounding no remorse over here.
All right, but our attorneys are jumping out of their seats. They're going to talk a little bit more. We're going to talk about whether he staged his wife's murder. That's what the prosecution's alleging. A lot more to talk about with the Seacat trial.
Why did you melt the 2 hard drives as opposed to just tossing them in the trash?
That's what you're supposed to do with hard drives.
Hey, why is that?
Because the main source for identity theft is trash. And if you leave a hard drive in a trash, most identity thieves would not have any problem at all accessing that hard drive in some form or another.
Okay. So you decided to torch the hard drives.
I decided to destroy them. Torching came up along the way, and it actually seemed like a pretty good idea once I heard it.
Brett Seacat trying to explain why he torched his hard drives days before his wife's death. So did he stage his wife's killing? Let's go straight to our panel. Janet Johnson, torching hard drives.
I know.
That seems bad.
It's not bad. I have a couple of theories on all of this. Well, I have
Give me a quick theory.
I have clients who have been caught pawning their computers, and they thought they wiped things off of it, and oops, there's child pornography. They wish they torched it.
All right, Mo, he's saying he was trying to pawn it. He was going through a divorce. He needed the money. Do you buy it?
No, absolutely not. What he was doing was making sure there was nothing that anybody could see about, you know, evidence that could come up. Listen, he's a cop. He knows these things. He knows what to do with evidence. And I just think this is a classic, let me get rid of this days before. He thinks he's way smarter than he actually is.
John Phillips, he's a cop, and they tend to be a little different on the stand. Maybe that explains the flat affect?
Maybe. But, you know, again, I'm a victim's advocate, and I don't get the anger if you just lost the mother of your kids. I don't get, you know, if you've seen Casey Anthony's trial and you saw the search terms come in there and then you use a blowtorch and then guess what? Fire's involved. You know, it's all too weird.
But if you're wrongly accused, you're angry. You're angry if you're being wrongly accused of murder.
But if you're wrongly accused, you're not making jokes. Who makes jokes and smiles when they're wrongly accused?
Up and down on that stand, as Ted said, appealing to the jury, appearing smug. None of that is what a jury wants to see when someone's lost their life. Holly Hughes with the jury.
Okay, speaking of what juries want to see, let's see if our jury agrees with our panelist over here. The question is, get your paddles ready, right? Did Brett Seacat stage his wife's murder? Yes or no, guys? Oh, okay. Number 8's wavering back there, but I've got 2 yeses in the front. Ryan, tonight we've got our husband and wife team. Number 4, who is one of our regulars, and she brought out number 3, who she's married to. So let's see what they have to say. We're going to let ladies first.
Well, you know, it bothers me that, you know, he said that he tried to help her out of the room. There was no evidence of that. He didn't have any soot. You know, he didn't have any ashes on him. And then there was nothing in her lungs. So it clearly says to me that she was dead before that fire was set.
Because she didn't breathe anything in. So, you know, and he should have burns if he's carrying her out of a burning building, right? That's what I'm hearing. How about you?
It seems like he watches too much bad TV and he cuts in to something else and he doesn't finish watching what is staging it.
Okay, because at the end, the bad guy always gets caught, right? Yeah, so he should have watched those TV programs all the way through, wow. Ryan. That's what number 3 says.
That's a smart man to agree with his wife.
See that?
How about that?
Have a nice
Diana Tennis, what's your take on this?
It's all so much weirdness, Ryan. I don't understand for the supposedly really brilliant CSI cop. Method of killing her, bizarre. The fire, how he thought that was going to help, I don't know. The burning up the computers, why that would help if you'd sent emails or sent messages. There'd be something else somewhere else. It is a bizarre way to get rid of things. We all know how to take our computers down to where they destroy your computers. Nobody puts them in the trash can and dumps gasoline on them. So it's bizarre all the way around.
All right, bizarre indeed, Diana. Thank you. Folks, coming up, what's it like to be an executioner? You'll see that in just a little bit. And remember the Jodi Arias case? What kinds of things were they saying behind the scenes on sidebars? You always wondered, right? You're not going to believe what they were talking about. That's coming up.
I've tried hundreds and hundreds of criminal cases, and in many of them, the defendant longs to take the stand and explain their version to the jury, convince them of their version. Doesn't usually work out that way. 99 times out of 100, they're headed for an acquittal, only to crash and burn after they take the stand.
Did I ask you for how long, ma'am?
No.
Did I ask you if it was a crime?
No, you didn't.
Are you a lawyer? Do you know what a crime is and what isn't? Did I ask you whether or not you called her stupid, ma'am? Your problems with your memory, is it of recent vintage?
Define recent.
What factors influence your having a memory problem?
Usually when men like you are screaming at me or grilling me, or someone like Travis doing the same.
Folks, we got some new developments in the Jodi Arias trial. You remember all those sidebars that we sat through? Did you ever wonder what they were saying during those heated talks? Well, now we know. You see, the Arizona Republic newspaper has just released the transcripts, and one interesting exchange we found happened on April 2nd between prosecutor Juan Martinez and defense attorney Jennifer Wilmot. You see, Wilmot was explaining what she wanted to ask the woman you see here, Alice LaViolette, domestic violence expert. Wilmot wanted to know if Travis Alexander told Jodi that he would kill himself. So Martinez responds, quote, "The thing is that if Miss Wilmot and I were married, I certainly say I effing want to kill myself." Can you believe that? That doesn't mean I want to kill myself. It just means there's a bad relationship and I want you to leave me alone. Now, Wilmot comes back with, quote, "Just for the record, I think that was an insult because he's trying to say that if he and I were married. That's an insult. And then Martinez cut her off. Quote, "That was a compliment. Bad joke." Wilmot responds, "I don't see it as either." Ooh, heated. Heated, guys. Okay, Janet Johnson, over the line.
He also told her she should go back to law school. Totally over the line. I think he's a bully, and I think this enables him to keep doing it.
Judge Alex Ferrer, what would you say if you had that discussion happening in front of you?
Well, I'll tell you that sidebar, a lot of discussions like that happen, but I wouldn't allow an attorney to go ahead and take shots at the other attorney. It does happen, and I've shut them down, and I've said, don't do that, and if they do it again, I threaten them with contempt. But there are a lot of humorous moments that do happen sidebar where both sides are joking with each other and with the court. It's kind of part of our gallows humor that you have to have when you're dealing with cases of such seriousness, or else you go crazy.
Yeah, I think he was trying to make a joke there. Phillips Snyder, what's your take on this? You ever said anything like that in a sidebar?
Listen, I've been a prosecutor and a defense attorney. What you have to realize, and Juan Martinez, if you're watching, you should be ashamed of yourself. She didn't pick this client. I know you have such disdain for Jodi Arias, but it's not her fault. Defense attorneys sometimes don't pick their clients, and you should know better than to make a personal attack on her when you really want to make a personal attack on her client.
Holly Hughes, you're a pit bull in the courtroom. What would you have said if Juan Martinez said that to you?
Oh, Lord have mercy. They wouldn't be able to transcribe it, Ryan, okay? Just when you thought it couldn't get any crazier. We're going to do something different here tonight.
Yep.
We're going to do our own version of speed dating on After Dark. I've got 4 jurors that I haven't talked to. I'm going to put them on the spot. I'm going to say what you say to the lawyers. One word to describe what you just saw.
Obnoxious.
How about you?
Heated.
All right, we've got obnoxious and heated. I'm going down here to number 7.
Immature.
Immature. Oh, hit the nail on the head. And number 6. What do you think about that exchange?
Hysterical.
Okay, there you have it, Ryan. Speed dating with the jury.
You know what, John? I mean, I look at this. I don't... Juan Martinez got the job done at the end of the day. What do you make of it over the line?
You know, what I want to see... Lawyers have a bad enough rap, and you see what you saw today with just the argument and lawyers going after lawyers in there. We need to bring the bar up a little bit and not, especially on televised trial, try to maintain your decorum.
Yeah, and you know they'll see this sometimes. Not a good scene. All right, thank you so much to our in-studio jury. Thank you to all of our experts. Great job, you guys. Folks, thanks for joining us on After Dark.